Empezaremos este viaje de la poesía por Gales. El poeta Richard Gwyn, quien nació en 1956, es poeta, novelista, profesor universitario y director de maestría en Escritura Creativa. Realizó estudios de Antropología, interesándose por las culturas, la música y las lenguas amenazadas. Entre sus libros de poemas se encuentran Una noche en la calle Ícaro, Caminando sobre huesos, Siendo en el agua y Café de la triste jirafa. También es editor de la Antología de la Nueva Poesía de Gales, El ala del perodáctilo, Poesía galesa del mundo. Columnista habitual de Poesía de Gales, publicó el libro de memorias El desayuno del vagabundo.
Viví unos años en Grecia, un país que adoro, y trabajé allí en la tierra y como pescador durante 4 años. Y tengo 2 poemas sobre la vida en Grecia. Tengo que decir también que la influencia de poetas griegos sobre mi obra, como Cavafy, Seferis, Ritsos, poetas modernos griegos, es posiblemente más fuerte que cualquier influencia de poetas ingleses. Bees. Returning from the olive fields with nets, axe and saw, I was told that Yanis the honeymaker had been stung to death by his bees. He was a man in his early 40s with 3 children. He had entered the hive in the Greek way without protection. That evening, in the Café Neon, the shepherds sat in silence with their crooks and worry bees. In the background was a perpetual wailing that came from the direction of Yanis the honeymaker's home. Occasionally, the wailing would be interrupted by screams and shouting. I imagined the beating of the widow's fists on the walls, the beating of the widow's fists on unyielding hives, the beating of the widow's fists on her husband's departing back. Then, as night fell on the mountains, a mysterious humming sound began to seep into the air. I went and stood on the veranda, overlooking the village square. People appeared in doorways. Shutters were opened. The deep buzzing grew louder, a counterpoint to the shrill wailing from the dead man's house, and then, very gradually, it subsided. Nobody talked about this afterwards, but I knew from their faces the next day that everyone had heard it. Vivir en Grecia es vivir en un mundo con una mitología muy fuerte y muy cerca, y a veces muy inesperada. Este poema se llama Hermes no reconocido, Hermes unrecognized. This happened many years ago when I lived in another country. He was a small, slim, muscular man. He grew grapes and some vegetables on a plot above the village, and he owned a fishing boat, scraping a living from these 2 sources. He was a quiet man, fleet of foot, sleek of mind. He had been a child during the Italian occupation and picked up odd phrases of the language, which he dropped into his speech like splashes of primary colour, the childlike diminutives of the Italian flailing and fluttering ineffectually against the austerity and gravitas of Greek. His knowledge of the world came as a revelation to me, since I had been taught that only educated people could understand the bigger picture. From his boat, he caught octopus, sardines, and small fish, atherina, and when I visited the village 2 years later, he invited Gabriella and me to his table and shared his fish with us, insisting that we eat the heads. Good for the eyes, he said. His own were blue, and narrowed by the habit of staring out to sea. His face was deep, creviced mahogany. I never saw him wear a pair of shoes or sandals, even winged ones, though he moved at speed across the thorny paths and cliff tops. Perhaps I should have taken account of all this earlier, but there is no going back, not to the places you have left behind. Translation. All your stories are about yourself, she said, even when they seem to be about other people. I was not going to deny this, nor give her the pleasure of being right. So I quoted Proust, who said that writers don't invent books, they find them within themselves and translate them. This seemed to do the trick, and she fell silent. I dipped my fingers into a bowl of scented water and started on the rice. An aftertaste of clay and leaves and metal took me by surprise. What is in this rice? I asked her. Mushroom stock? Shotgun cartridge? Earthworm? No, she said, peering at me through the candlelight. The stories that you haven't written yet are in the rice. You must be tasting them.